Ethical leadership questions. Number one, I work in public sector and have always stood by the truth and not to compromise my faith. But I end up being frustrated and people end up expressing some hatred towards my stand. What should I do? Three things. Number one, you should expect it. Because sometimes the reason why we get frustrated is that we were not expecting. Surely, let me ask you a question. If you know very well that you want to gain something out of, wrongly, whoever comes to stop you, would you be happy with them? And know your values are making it difficult for your workmates to steal, to be corrupt. So it should not be surprising to you when there is a problem, frustrations, hatred coming from your workmates. Should work there aware of that. You are operating in enemy territory. This is enemy territory. And that's why we are looking forward to going back home. Number two, it's very important to understand that you are protected by the blood of Jesus. Your reputation is protected by Jesus. What that means is that irrespective of what they plan to do to you, you are immovable until the Lord allows it. So you see them trying this and trying the other and just sympathize with them because you know they can't win unless the Lord wants you out of the place. So number one, you are not frustrated. You understand them. You know, Jesus saw people that were killing him and he said, forgive them. They don't even know what they are doing. Instead of being frustrated, he is actually showing sympathy. And that's what you need to understand. But thirdly and importantly, please check that what you are doing has the sanctions of heaven. That you are not just being a difficult person, but basically there are ethical issues that are causing you to do what you are doing. Once you confirm that you are in line with heaven, then leave your battles to the Lord and just wait to see how you fight them. Question number two, how do you cope with corruption issues at work when you are a threat to the management? Basically the same as in question one. You cope with the corruption issues by, number one, not participating in them yourself. You must never compromise and participate in unethical issues, number one. Number two, pointing out to the others why it is wrong to do what they are doing is your responsibility. Because some of them, corruption becomes so accepted that people don't even see anything wrong with it. For example, you go for a seminar and people claim things that they never used, and everybody signs. It's become accepted because they are saying, but this money was budgeted. Obviously, the reason why you are claiming is because even if it's budgeted, you must prove that you used it in the right way. So when you lie that you used something you didn't use, that's corruption. So it's important to understand you make a stand, and because you have made a stand, others will be totally uncomfortable with it. So they will not be happy. But it's especially in this question, there's the issue of, what about if those people happen to be your bosses? Of course, they will feel very threatened because they fear you might report them to the board, which is a big possibility. So you need to do the same with them. Tell them clearly what they are doing is wrong, you cannot participate in it, and that the owners of the company will not be happy to know that that's what is happening. What they'll do is they'll try to get you fired. Sometimes they even try to kill you. That's why you need to make a clear stand and be aware if you are dead in the process, you go to heaven. So since you can't be reflected, you cannot change that. You cannot change your stand when you know that God will be unhappy with you. It is the apostles who told the Sanhedrin, hey, make a choice. Would we rather obey you, our bosses, our leaders, national leaders, or obey God? And obviously the choice is clear. So your leadership needs to, in your place of work, needs to understand that you cannot do something that dishonors heaven. Question 3, is it right to give someone a second and third chance after pleading for forgiveness? No, those are too few. Jesus said, forgive them 7 times, 70 times. That's 490 times in one day. Obviously, forgiveness is a must. The only thing is, forgiveness does not mean no action. It means there is no bitterness. But you can't, a child can't start playing with the fire and then you say, no, that's wrong. He says no. He repents, so you forgive him. You need to be aware that the next time he tries, he could be banned. For his own good, you must allow punishment. That's why it needs to be very clear that these are the consequences of what you do. And when it happens, you can forgive somebody, you can tell them you understand, but they must suffer the consequence for their own good. Because if they don't suffer the consequence, it would not discourage them from repeating it. And finally, who will lose? Themselves. For example, maybe it's a subordinate, and you keep forgiving them. Then you are transferred, and they work at a new boss. They will not imagine anybody can be working there like that. So you'll be fired, jobless. When he's out on the street having nothing to eat, you'll be responsible because you did not discipline the person. So forgiveness is not carrying bitterness, but you must help the person. The person needs your help. Question number 4. How can Christians survive in the current corrupt environment? Oh, just because they know God, they always survive. And they have always survived. Christianity, we were told by Jesus himself, we're going to suffer violence, but the violent will take it with force. So it's very clear Christianity will survive. In 1948, in China, Mao Zedong decided this thing is terrible. It must be banned. Christians were punished. Church was closed. Church as a national organization was closed. Do you know something? When China reopened 40 years later, that's 1948, it was closed. 1988, it opened. When people went as tourists to research, they found that the number of Christians had risen from the 5 million of 1948. It was now estimated there were more than 50 million Christians. The church grew much faster than in the West. So, how can a Christian survive in the current corrupt environment? By simply making their stand. Let me give you 3 suggestions. Number 1, even the very corrupt CEO does not want corrupt subordinates. So the moment he knows that you are incorruptible, he will be looking to make you his deputy, because he is sure he is protected. Only him, of course, he wants himself to continue stealing, but you cannot. Nobody else should be stealing. So you are assured of a job, integrity. Every business owner is looking for people of integrity. And that's why Christians, if they are consistent, because many people say they are Christians, but they still compromise. But if you are consistent, people will be looking for you. They want somebody they can trust. Every entrepreneur who begins a business wants a manager whom they can trust. Number 2, if God's intention is you stay there, they will try whichever way to fire you, but you are not fireable. God gave you the job. Only God can allow you to lose the job. So how will you survive? God will look for ways to ensure that you go on in life. And finally, you may even become the CEO of the organization. So we will survive. But of course, there are some that will go down, and that's God's intention. He sometimes wants to use you as an example by allowing you to be killed, or even by allowing you to be fired. And then when you're fired, we say, what? These people believe in their God. The name of the Lord will be praised by your firing more than by your surviving. And remember, you are God's instrument. he will use you to his glory. One thing he has promised, he never to leave you, not forsake you. So whether you are fired, God will certainly continue providing your needs, financial needs, and other needs. That's one of the things you have to. So the whole thing, all these questions have to do with: do you trust God, or is this ethics an ethic that depends on you? Now, question number 5: how does the church as a ministry discipline its members, especially public figures whose integrity shortcomings are well known? Obviously, every church is very clear. Timothy was told that the elder must be, or a senior person in church, should not be blamed on the witness of one guy. No. Everything must have an investigation process. Because people just be unhappy with somebody and they start claiming things about him. So a matter must be investigated, according to Paul talking to Timothy. In church matters, something must be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. That means it's a process. But once, Paul goes on to say, once it's been established that the person is guilty, then they must be disciplined publicly. They must be disciplined publicly. And that should happen in a church. That's the way to explain to people that Christianity is real. You know, God is a holy God. So you cannot expect that somebody is living immorally and is still allowed to be the pastor of the church, is allowed to be the preacher of the church, and it's been established through a process that is true he is immoral. How should we relate to Christians who support and campaign for leaders who have integrity issues for reasons that they are better than others? You know, that's a very complicated issue. There's nowhere where you can expect a political party to be a church party. So they will have people who are Christians and others who are not. So the reason we vote people is not because they are Christians. We vote them because you agree with their program. You agree with how they hope to run the government. So if you do that, if that's what you are doing it, then obviously you don't mind anybody supporting. If you believe, like in America, they have the Democrats and the Republicans. Christians are on both sides. So, but when you throw your vote, your conscience should be the one to lead you. Do not assume that your candidate is the one that's going to run the government better than my candidate. You don't know. You know, some people, especially when you are not in my party, or you have heard about my candidate, is evil. Because everybody wants to bring him down. And most likely also what I have heard about your candidate is evil. That's why I'm not joining your candidate. So please, we cannot divide on political lines, but we must vote with our conscience. And your conscience is not that one determines mine. You must allow, and that's why the church should never support a political party. And a church should never be partisan. Because inside the church, the brethren will come from either side. So the pastor who starts supporting one political party ceases to be a pastor. He can't be. Because the moment my candidate is defeated and I'm crying and I need somebody to counsel me, I can't come to my pastor if I know my pastor is rejoicing because his candidate passed. The pastor must remain independent. He can talk about evil, that he talks. But to point out that I elect this or don't elect this one, he has lost his role as an acceptable arbiter, a counselor for the ones that will be defeated. Is resigning after trying my best to stand for the Lord a failure? No. The only thing is you should resign because God has led you to resign. But do not resign because there are frustrations. Do not resign because there are challenges. Resign because God has shown you that you actually need to resign. So it's not an automatic It's not an automatic thing that I tried, they are not improving, so I resign. Maybe you are resigning just when you're about to win the issue. Can you imagine if William Wilberforce, after that years had actually given up fighting for liberation of the slave trade? You would never have had this kind of solution that followed with the liberation all over the world because of the one man, William Wilberforce. So don't give up too easily. Seek the mind of God. Question number 8. What is the best way to tell your boss that you don't like their behavior and that they shouldn't involve you without being accused of insubordination? Very, very good. Number 1, be a consistent Christian. Because if he knows you are a Christian consistently, he will know that your values and his values are not similar. So the first thing is, don't just say, I'm saved. That's not enough. It must be a way of life. Your Christianity must be a way of life until even people around you know. They cannot. And once they understand your values and that you are willing to die for those values, they will not ask you to do things that are wrong. They will be looking, they know where to look for. Of course, you also may not get a promotion, but they will not come to you because they now can see from your life that you are not, it's not that you say you are Christian, you actually are practicing your faith. And that's the first thing you do. The second one is talk to him about your Christianity. Not about the issue at hand, but about Christianity and why you would really pray that you also became a Christian. It's called witnessing. And that will be important. By the time you do those two, the third one becomes obvious. You will be able to tell him, I can't do some of the things you do, I can't do because of this and this and this. The Bible says this and this. You're taking a risk. In either of those 3 steps, you're taking a risk. So you must consult God, and if it's God leading you, rest assured, you can still remain in the company, and your boss might leave you there. Question number 9. If not all legal issues are ethical, then how is law protecting one from harm in breach of confidentiality in a research project? I repeat the question. If not all legal issues are ethical, then how is law protecting one from harm in breach of confidentiality in a research project? Let's be very clear. Some things are legal, you can do it legally, but basically is unethical. When I say unethical, it means it is harming somebody else. You are legally allowed to do it, but it's not for his good and does not glorify God. That's why it is unethical. But under law, there's nothing wrong you have done. For example, the confidentiality in a research project. If you have asked me for data and promised to keep it confidential, that will be both legal and ethical. Because you cannot make a commitment and then fail to keep it. According to Psalms 15, you are supposed to keep your word, even when it hurts. So if you have made a commitment to keep confidentiality, you have to keep it. You can share the information globally, but to say that Nganga said this will actually be wrong. Now, are you always protected by the law? No. So some things you do even when you're not protected. Who protects you? God. Question number 10. How do you let out facts and seem not a spoiler in matters of elections for an office? How do you let out facts and seem not a spoiler? If you are dealing with the elections, and you know somebody is a thief, certainly if you let the information known that this guy stole a pen from me last year, you'll certainly be a spoiler. But it will be wrong for you to allow people to elect the wrong person because they don't have facts and you have the facts. And this guy is going to become a leader of your group, not a group. No, for the good of the group, let the fact be on the table. By the way, even after telling them, they may still elect him. But it's important that even if you are called a spoiler, you give the information. But if what you are doing is to spoil somebody's character, what we call character assassination, so that he's not elected, so that your candidate can win, then obviously that doesn't have good motive, and you certainly are doing the wrong thing. Question number 13. Question number 12. How do you deal with stress brought about by your stand against a wrong but a popular wave in the office? How do you deal with the stress brought about by your stand against a wrong? Obviously, you are back to my earlier discussion. If you know this is what God wants you to do, I say, number one, you must expect the repercussions. Surely, if you're hurting people's income, why should you not? And because you expect them to fight back, when they fight back, it will not be shocking, and you are not going to suffer stress. You know, stress is inability to respond to a stressor. You already knew what the stressor would be, so you will not be suffering stress. But number two, even where there is some frustration and stress, you will take it to God in prayer, seeking His help and His direction. Number three, one of the things that really stresses is fearing to lose your job. The moment you make up your mind that that job came from God, only God can take you out of it. You will not be living afraid of losing the job, because even if you lost it, you know God will give you another one. It is Him who gave you this one. He can give you another one. So you don't feel in fear. You don't live in fear. So therefore, you will not be stressed. And if you are stressed, you will talk to God. Does use of your professional identity or your employer's name to assess some necessities termed as lack of integrity? For example, those going past the roadblocks right now and use their employment identity cards, since it will add more weight to the police and allow them pass for their own gains. Obviously, it is corruption. It's unethical. You are making a policeman believe a certain thing which you know it's not true. That you are involved since your company is in essential service, therefore the police will open the roadblock for you. But you have nothing to do with it. You are just going to see your girlfriend. It's certainly unethical. Question number 13. What can one do when between a rock and a hard place in a choice? Certainly, all these other issues you have been talking about are what we call between a rock and a hard place. You stick with your ethics, you will be fired. You do not stick with ethics, you are going to hell. Certainly, you have a problem. But when you are a Christian, some of those decisions are not difficult at all. You are aware that the God who gave you instructions is going to be the same God that will protect you, even if you get fired. So you make up your mind. At least one thing that's certain, as a Christian, you never. That's why it's so difficult to be ethical when you don't have God on your side. But when you have God on your side, you can make a stand, even if it's going to cause you killed. Because people are shot because of standing on the way of unethical people. You are ready for death because you know God will be with you even as you die. You are ready for loss because you know God will be with you in the loss. And in many cases, He protects you and you don't end up in the loss you are fearing. How to manage challenges of corruption at the workplace without being intimidated? Simply trust in God. Intimidation is fear. And I've just explained that the reason we have fear mainly in the places of work has to do with fearing losing the job, sometimes fearing losing promotions, and sometimes fearing being killed. None of those is something God can handle. So you cannot be intimidated, because to intimidate is to fear. You can't fear. You do it, but do not be naive to imagine that you'll do it and they'll not fight back. So when they finally fight back, it will not surprise you, it will not shock you. You just stick with you, and whatever they can do, whatever they want to do, but you know that with God on your side, you'll be able to go through whatever they do. So don't be intimidated. Wait until the actual repercussions come. Then you handle them with the help of God. 15, how can I say no to a friend who is being used to make me a victim of bribery? Very simple. Simply say no. How can I say no? Just simply say no. Because they are trying to use him to reach you, to convert you. Surely, do you want to displease the Lord in order for them to please them in this process of bribery? No, the answer must be no. Having said no, the next thing is to talk to this friend. You know me. You know my stand. How did you agree to come to me? You should have told them, you know my stand. You should have told them, I cannot be involved in this thing. I'm disappointed in you that you'd actually imagine that there is something to discuss when you know my belief and you know my values. So he himself will know that he cannot start playing games with you next time. But you need to come out very clear. 16. What is the best way to address an issue where workmates know that I can not accept certain things? They go ahead and do contrary to what is right and create doctored documents. Since I deal directly with a large number of the clients, I'm caught in between telling them the true state of affairs or stick with the doctored documents my workmates have shared with them. Obviously, you know you can't do that. The moment you stick with the doctored documents, then you become part of the problem. You have only two possibilities. Either you tell them you'll not be involved in that matter, or expose them. You can't have a third alternative. So it's important to understand the best way to address an issue where workmates know that you cannot accept certain things is to continue with it. But they'll keep trying. Because you see, they are losing a lot due to you. So they'll keep trying. They'll befriend you. If you don't have your antennas high, you might end up seeing yourself compromised. They will even try to trick you, put that on you. Then you see, you're also in trouble. You say you're not corrupt. How come you did this and that? So you have to be clear and sensitive to not to be compromised in a small thing, because that small thing is what will they will use to blackmail you to sign the documents. 17, what steps will I take to deal with customers whose integrity is wanting and have already paid them for the work? Now, number 1, learn the lesson. Never pay for work not yet done. Even in construction, they will give you mobilization money. Then after that, the QS must verify work done before every certificate can be paid. So the first problem is, why were you paying anybody before they work? Because they lose the motivation. Now they are looking for new work to get new money. You, even if they work, they're not going to earn anything. You see, money that has already been eaten is no longer a motivator. So that's the first problem you have. But if you have actually gone ahead and paid them and they have not yet worked, what steps will you take to deal with the customers? Well, then number 1 is to plead with them. Number 2 is to sign something clear about new deadlines. Tell them, I do not want to go legal on this matter, but I want you to make a commitment about new deadlines. If they refuse to make a commitment on deadline, then you must follow your agreement. I'm assuming there was an agreement that said if work is not done, what will happen? But don't go that route first. Offer by pleading with them to finish. Number 2, offer to enter into new work schedule, the new deadlines. Once they are now agreed on new schedule and deadlines, you must also agree, if you don't do it within those deadlines, what will be the consequence? And then when they don't keep the new deadlines, just do what needs to be done. In love, you understand by insisting on discipline, you are making them better contractors, and that in the process of better clients, in the process, they will remember you for life. Is the market amoral? Certainly not. The market is not amoral, because the market are human beings. There's no when you talk about market, you are meaning suppliers and you are meaning customers. A supplier is a human being, a customer is a human being, and human beings are not amoral. They can either be moral or immoral. Should a farmer plant sorghum because he gets good returns from malt? In other words, can you say you do not support alcohol manufacture when you are the one providing the raw material? Certainly not. Have a stock of EABL because it pays good dividends. You can't say that you are not supporting beer drinking, and you are the investor. You are the one who gave the money for the plant to be built. You have competent workers, but not believers. There's no requirement that your workers must be believers. No. The only place is, for example, if you are talking about a church is a place where people are witnessing. The main reason the church exists is for witnessing, for people to get saved. Surely you can't use people who are not born again to work for the church. So they cannot be competent. Because competence means whether you are an accountant or a cashier or a what, you are the representative of the message of that church. So the church cannot employ people that are not born again, because in the process, they will be interfering with the message of the gospel. But if you are an entrepreneur and you have begun your business, you will employ Christians, you will employ non-Christians. The key thing will be, number one, they must be ethical. Number two, they must be competent. But number three, they must allow you to to run your place in a Christian way. That means there is a chance that even those who have employed who are not Christians will hear the gospel. Employed by Asians, Muslims, whose money may be sacrificed to their gods. Obviously, if you are the shop manager, and the profit goes to an Asian, you can't be held accountable for how he uses his money. No. You cannot say that I will knock for an organization because you go to the stock exchange and find out who are the real owners and find out how they use their money. That's different. As long as the organization is carrying a moral trade, what they are doing is adding value to human beings. The trade, the business is adding value to God's people. Just be involved in the business. It does not matter that the owners might use the profit you make in a wrong way, because that's a different matter altogether. It's just like you go to visit your girlfriend's place with your family, then you don't believe in dowry, but you give a gift. Then after you have given them 100,000 shillings, you later see the father of the girl in a bar, and you cannot be held accountable how he used the money. You cannot give me a gift and determine how you use the gift. But you cannot yourself bring alcohol to the mzee. You cannot bring the alcohol as a part of the gift. That's now different. And that's really what I'm understanding with this question. My hope is that as we discuss this, that you apply the principles to your own situation, because the situation may be different.